Look at me. Do I look familiar? Yes? That's because we were all once sacred whores. Awake, awake, sacred whores, and welcome! Honoring the whores that came before us, the ones that will come after us, and the ones that reside within us. Hello, and welcome to Sacred Whores, where your host is in beautiful Thailand, Copenhagen to be exact, and she is glistening with sweat. It's really attractive. I'm just like melting. But you know what? I like to be true and authentic, so I'm just gonna leave it. And this is what you're gonna get. So yes, welcome to Sacred Whores. I'm so excited that you have chose to click on the link to listen to the beautiful whore's voice. And I'm so excited to welcome you into this safe, sacred space. Now, before we begin, this is kind of more of an introduction episode. And I thought that it would be best to tell you a little bit about myself, so that you know who I am and who's like interviewing these beautiful people and what kind of qualifies me to speak of this topic. Though I don't admit to knowing everything, I'm not cocky, and I'm here to always learn and grow, which is part of the reason why I chose to start this podcast. I was actually on a phone call with this badass babe who was talking about IT work that she was doing in establishing safer communities for sex workers. And I was like, okay, this needs to be recorded. Like, everyone needs to hear this. And that was kind of the start of the podcast. So definitely don't know everything. Definitely started this to learn more. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I think you'll see from this first episode, it is leaned toward people in the industry and also people outside of the industry. So even as I was like listening to it back, some of the questions I'm sure I was like, oh, like I already know the answer to, or maybe like strippers or sex workers, like will already kind of know this stuff. But our guest today just so eloquently, she's so eloquent, and she so eloquently states her opinions and her views that I can't think of a better person to be like the first spokesman of what it is exactly we do at times. And I think that it is important as sex workers to really listen to other people, especially how they describe the work that they do, because the only way we're really going to create change is if we feel open enough to open up our throat chakra. Sounds like sweat is like fleeing to the camera, but to open up our throat chakra and really be able to stand in confidence and speak of what it is we do. So even though this podcast may be introductionary for a few people, I think it's good to listen to how other bomb-ass babes and dudes interpret their job, so that when we are asked or presented with, oh, you're a sex worker, or like, oh, you're a stripper, that you have all these tools in your toolkit to just eloquently say your own speech and your own line, and to know that you can say something because there are other people around you saying something. And I think that there are definitely power in numbers, right? So, a little bit about me, though. I have been a stripper for about 2 years, but I started as a cam girl, which is interesting. That's what my guest and I today have that in common. I like to say that I was watching porn one day and was like, I could be an active participator. So I did become one, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I loved camming. I really enjoyed it because it offered up an income where, like, it had taken me a couple years, but I had worked a corporate job, right? And I had done the like 9 to 5, but I was always kind of like the free spirit friend in the group, and like kind of always the wanderer. And I just felt like my 9-to-5 job wasn't my true calling. And I felt like I was drawn to like learn about the divine feminine and the divine masculine and like esoteric and go down like academia like rabbit holes, but like can't really do that when you have a job, right? Or like, I don't know, I was finding that I was just like personally developing myself so much that I was like, this other aspect of me just doesn't feel aligned with who I am. And that started a whole journey down of quitting my job, going to New York City, living there for a while, falling in love as one does when they're trying to escape themselves. Codependence warning. And just kind of flowing around, but also being hypersensitive and hyper aware that like I have student loans to pay. I can't live on a friend's couch for eternity. Like, what am I going to do to like jumpstart what I really want to do in life, yet also provide for myself? And honestly, I feel like the stripper sex worker gods just placed sex work in my lap and gave me this opportunity in life where I was super open to the concept. I had listened to Guys We Fucked podcast, the anti-slut shaming podcast by Corinne Fisher and Christina Hutchinson. And by the way, I'm going to always name drop podcasts because I respect the people who came before me and the people who come after me. And I would not be here today without like key podcasts. So I can only hope to do as good a job as they do one day, or at least like a quarter, a little bit. I hope that, they definitely gave me the courage to step in to shatter that matrix. Anyways, but Guys We Fucked was really interesting because they started interviewing sex workers, and I don't know, it just like really got my juices flowing. I'd really never heard of sex work before then. How did I view sex? Like, I was a Scorpio, so I was pretty sexual, but I also like had this belief that like I needed to wait for my husband, or not actively, but like that like no one was good enough to go inside of me unless it was serious. And it's funny, I still feel like I have that, but I use it for my advantage, which I don't know if it's the most healthy thing, but I enjoy it. I like who I am, so I fuck with it. So, but yeah, anyways, I was listening to podcasts that really like expanded my mind, and yeah, it was really just weird. It was like one thing led to another thing, and I was doing camming for a little bit and realizing that I love like online chatting with people. That was a real throwback to like my younger days when I was on AOL, and then also like just meeting so many different people, walks of life, and having the opportunity to talk to them was really special to me. And then I was up late one night, and I was on Craigslist, and I found an ad for a shot girl at a strip club, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I could do that. I bet I could do that. And I hadn't really never thought about stripping. Like, it's so weird. Like, I know there are jokes about strip joints and strippers, and whorephobia, but I really hadn't paid much attention to that. I'm kind of like in my own zone. And music videos, I really hadn't thought much about stripping at all, until it literally fell on my lap. And then when the next day or the next couple of days I was on the couch, and I just got the idea to look up pole dancing, which I think honestly is crazy. I'd never thought of it. So I was looking at pole dancing around where I stayed. I took a couple pole dance classes. Honestly, I was horrible. Horrible. Like, I touched the pole. I was like, how does one climb up this? Like, what? This doesn't make any sense. But weirdly enough, I took 2 classes, really not good, could not climb or anything. But there was something inside of me that was like, if I'm going to take pole dancing, I'm going to be a stripper. Like, I'm going to profit on this. And simultaneously, I was also doing like online courses about psychology of stripping from amazing people like Rags to Riches, and Jack the Stripper was like a real influencer. So people who've been in the industry for a while and really capitalized on social media and was talking positively about the industry. And I bought books, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. and it was talking all about like active listening and just the art of therapy, while being naked. It was awesome. So I don't know why, but I felt confident. I had all my stripper gear, and I went to SCORE Chicago, and it was the first club I danced at, and it was awesome. I started as a day girl, which I loved, because like you get like businessmen that come in, that are just having kind of a rough day maybe, or need some excitement or whatever, and you get to talk. And I was a morning person, so it's like morning, like I like to rise when the sun rises. So I love that. And then I like worked hard, and I got better at pole. I got more into my character, and I became a night girl, and I did really well. And it was I kind of pushed myself. I'm like a rising Capricorn, so I really went for work, and yeah, it was amazing. It was an amazing time. I'm really appreciative of that. And it's not over. It's, still yet beginning. I just know it's shifting a little bit right now with COVID. And then with that, as I expanded into my sexuality and strip club ways, I became more confident in who I am. And I became more confident in my boundaries and what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I started offering different services, and one thing I noticed is I really like to chill with, like really like, like slang, like, though it could be a double meaning, but I really like to fuck with couples. Like, I think they're so cool. I thought that a couple that clubs together stays together. They would come into the club, and most girls would like avoid them because they don't know how to handle couples. They don't like, that's like too much drama or whatever. You gotta act a certain way, you gotta butter up the woman, whatever. But for me, it just like came so easily, and I really enjoyed them. And I would do private dances for them, and it was just like really cool to see people like open up with their sexuality and really take a stance for what gives them pleasure. Whether that be the woman or the male, you know what I mean, or the woman or the man, like just like anyone to have an equal say of what they want their experience to be like, I think is beautiful. And coming from like a Christian Bible Belt or certain ways, it's like you have this one partner, and they're your everything, and it's a sacred holy union, but like, I don't know about you, but I can't really hold on to a best friend all the time. So I recognize that, like, there are certain people, a personal dig on myself, right? But I recognize that there are, like, people that come into your life that fill, like, different voids or different parts, or, like, you have your therapist, and then you have your mom, and you have your dad. Like, each person is different. You can't go to one person for everything. So, like, why obviously can you do that with a couple? That's, like, a lot of pressure. And especially if you've been together for a long time, like, why not spice up life a little bit? Like, and the coolest thing about being with couples is, like, seeing the love for themselves, like, each other. And I think that is so magical. And then feeling grateful that they like welcome me into their circle is just equally so freaking cool. So that's a little bit about me. I really like couples. But I guess also to say that throughout the training, from being like from being a baby stripper to learning my boundaries to growing as an individual, during that whole time, what I appreciated about my job is it offered a lot of professional development and personal development. And I kept, learning about astrology. I kept learning about the goddess deity. I kept learning about my moon cycle. I kept learning about energy flow. And really amazing about my career choice is that it gave me the freedom to still dive into like the creative aspects that I enjoy. And so I think this will be like another podcast, but basically I just started thinking about energy and how it flows, and working with all these different kind of clients, seeing like the baggage and trauma they hold, and the visionaries I would get when working with these individuals. And I started going down like a tantric rabbit hole, or like yogi practice, and Dunga, where these sex goddesses would be healers, and I would start practicing that in my practice, in my work shifts, and it went really well. And those shifts, I made a lot of money, and like, it was amazing. It was so good. And I don't know. So with everything that's happened with the coronavirus, I decided to run to Thailand before shutdown occurred, mostly because I wanted to work with yogi people. I wanted to find a teacher. I wanted to learn more about Tantra. And ironically, I actually even landed on an island known for the beginning of Tantra, Copenhagen. And there are yogi people everywhere, classes, studios, everything. Lots of Tantra practices going on. But it's weird because even in that community, I feel like when I'm truly my goddess self and I step into the work that I do and who I am, I felt like there was something missing in that community. I didn't feel like fully accepted. And it's interesting, they'd be like, well, where did you train? Who did you train with? And I was like, you know what, to be honest, I've kind of just trained myself, like through trial and error. And I know that I'm kind of on the right path because I went to a tantric festival and they were talking about like best practices and like sacred approaches, and I was like, oh, I do that. That's a thing. Is that that's an official thing? Because I 100% do that. So then I realized that, like, you know what, Jubilee, you're here to like tap into your goddess self and remember. Okay, last location change. For those that are watching, I am now in my bedroom because I swear to God, it's just so loud. This is why I record the podcast at night. And then for those that are listening, I've moved like 3 locations already. And now I'm in my bedroom. And I'm actually, which is perfect because I wanted to record in front of this beauty. Oh my God. I'm in front of this beautiful, beautiful mural of this goddess woman dumping water over her shoulder. She is naked. She reminds me of like a nymph, like mermaid, like the ultimate goddess, like in the water and like also like giving back to the water, which is what I want to do. So basically I said, fuck you to all of the Tantra people who have this like spiritual guru sense but aren't super open to everything. I said, fuck you, Jubilee, for not being confident in who you are. You know who you are? You are a goddess queen. You've done this before. You've been in this industry before. You are having wisdom and skills that are just like being downloaded to you on a like daily, fast-paced basis. And it is now time, I'm pointing to the woman holding the vase of water, dumping it back into the ocean. It is now time to give back to everyone, to give back to the sisters, to step into a beautiful ocean of love and create yummy, goody space. I'm going to sit down for a second as I finish up my final thoughts. So there is just so much work still to be done within our industry, and so many avenues to face. I am just a white young woman who, very naive still. I've only been in the industry for a little bit compared to, say, a person of color who, has, they started the industry. We have to be grateful for the people that came before us, the whores that came before us. So really just want a sacred space to highlight their voices, to highlight my fellow stripper voices, to highlight full service sex workers, to highlight burlesque people, to highlight allyship, to answer email questions, to answer people who write like snarky comments online about sex work, who have this like so much shame around it. They sit behind their computer screen and just like spew it out, but they've never ever been in the industry. They don't know what it's like. And also, I'm not here to like rose color it. Like, it's hard work. It's not always perfect. It's corrupted a lot. It's corrupted a lot. And it's corrupted a lot because men own the industry, okay? So, like, I'm taking back the shame of it because it's not our fault that it should be shameful. In fact, we are high god and goddesses that come from, like, a long lineage of people who do this. I personally believe that. And, you know, that's what I'm here to, like, examine. Do other people believe that, and how do they incorporate that into their work? Because as y'all hear in this podcast episode coming up, like, there is some kind of, like, undoubting, like, call that just, like, draws us in and keeps us in. So that is something really to note. And really also this podcast started because of being super shadow banned for starting to say words like sex or hoe, you know, like, just words that, you know, they're trying to uphold, like, a certain moral standard, but, like, they're not being as diverse in their policies, Facebook, Instagram, social media. They're not being as diverse in their policies as, like, diverse as our society is. Like, nothing is black and white. Like, they're still operating in a Christian paradox, you know, where this is morals, this is not. And you know, sex work is not evil. Sex work can live amongst social media. Are you scared because once you allow sex work, everyone is going to flood? All the women are going to flood and be like, here are my nudies, you must pay for them. Yeah, that's probably going to happen, and good for fucking them. They should pay for them. Gone are the days, to all my male listeners who are heterosexual dudes, gone are the days where you can just send a dick pic freely willy. Like, no, never, ever, ever do that. It's disgusting. It's annoying. It's disgusting because it's crossing a boundary. Like, no one asked for that. And also, support local porn. We all know you watch it. Every single person. Guess what? People like their jobs. Not everyone hates themselves. You know, they are just working like normal people. Everyone works, you know? Everyone has good days, bad days. Support fucking porn. Then you're not going to get all these, like, creeps who are using human traffic videos or recording their sisters sleeping. Do you know why they record their sisters sleeping? Because there is not an outcry against sexuality in the way that it should be. Like, there is it. Well, here's the thing. Because when you block a certain aspect of yourself and you label it bad, like, think of the Puritans when you're, like, whipping yourself, like, no, that's, like, eroticism. Like, come on, you get off on that pain. So, believe me, I've been down that rabbit hole. You 100% do, Christians, okay, Catholic people. So you get off on that pain, but when you are hitting yourself and that wound is oozing, that will ooze onto everything else. So all of a sudden you can't talk about this certain thing because of the pain. You can't shed light on this. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have a healthy discussion when something is traumatized or stigmatized from the beginning. So that is my passions toward sex work and sex. I myself am not super sexual. I like to always say this, like, when's the last time I had sex? Like, probably a couple months ago. It was fun. I had a good time. But, like, I get in my zone and I love to work. I'm more, what's the one with soapy? What's the one when you get turned on by your brain? More of the lines. What's the saying when you come through starseed and galactical integration, when you're, like, high and you're channeling in all your juicy stuff and you're working on your flow and you're creating new spaces within your DNA and you're upgrading yourself, and then all of a sudden you just, like, release because that's so beautiful. You're like, oh, I'm growing. That's really how I come. So I don't really need a partner for that, but I can appreciate sex and I can appreciate my career choice, and I can appreciate people who love sex, who need partners, so who need, like, 4 million. So, like, whatever, do your thing. This is to remove shame from it, and this is to get our voices out. So without further ado, thank you for letting me introduce myself. That felt so good. It felt so good to speak. And I am so excited. This literally is going to be sent out in a couple hours. So let's go. Let's go. Step into my water. Step into my ocean of love and gratitude for your favorite sacred horse. Now, please welcome my first guest. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Sacred Horrors. I'm so thankful you have decided to join us, and I'm even more grateful that we can talk to this lovely babe and have, I want to say, is her? Do you identify as her? Her and she? Okay. We're gonna have her tell us about, sorry, we are gonna have, very excited. Whew. We're gonna have her tell us about herself and just have just give you like a rundown on her life and all the insider juiciness of what it is like for her as a sex worker. So I'm going to stop talking now. Could you introduce yourself to everyone and tell us the name that you prefer to go by? Like, what's your real name? Just kidding, you don't have to tell us your real name, but like what you want to be called. And then tell us how many years you've been in the industry for and kind of the backstory, like what got you into it and what kept you staying in it.
My name is Angelica. I'm currently a stripper. I have been stripping for about 2 years. Got into the industry in my hometown in Denver. I started dancing. I wasn't too sure if it was going to be for me at first. I wanted the money to save up, move, do all of that. The draw is always money, of course, but got into the industry, kind of found a bit of a sisterhood that I felt really comfortable with and kind of found my home there. And I can't see myself leaving for a long time.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Did you know anything about stripping before getting into the industry, or did you just like wake up one day and you're like, I'm gonna be a stripper?
Actually, did do a little bit of cam work prior to stripping, but it wasn't really for me. And always kind of was drawn more to the performance aspect of stripping. And so I did, a ton of baby stripper research, everything before I got started. But at my first audition, I didn't even have stripper shoes yet. So learning for sure. I feel like all the time, the industry's changing, you meet new people, but I didn't know anyone firsthand. So it was more just like a lot of Googling, researching.
Right. Was when you were Googling and researching, was this kind of before Instagram got famous with sex worker material, or where did you find help from?
It was more just like blogs and things like that. I wasn't really totally comfortable yet bringing it into like social media or anything like that. And I wasn't really an avid social media user either before I kind of got more into the community full of like strippers, sex workers. So now I would say I'm like a pretty avid user, but before that I didn't really have that. I didn't realize how good of a resource it could be.
Right. It's kind of blown up over the years too, it feels like. Yeah. Have you danced anywhere else besides Denver?
Ah, actually, I live in California now, so I danced out in the Bay Area when I moved out there. Not my favorite, that's for sure. But I have also travel danced a little bit. I was just in Phoenix. I loved that. And I'm planning on going to Texas next. So I mostly travel now with the California employee laws. So
That's
yeah.
interesting. What did you not love about the Bay Area?
So I don't know if everyone knows this, but in California, all strippers are employees now. So the problem with that is you don't make any money, essentially. So where I'm at, business is really slow in the clubs, and you're paid minimum wage on top of the commission. So minimum wage in the Bay Area is about $16. So I was making $16 an hour. And you don't make any commission until you pay in about $300 to $400. So think of it as paying like a $400 house fee, essentially.
Whoa. So you didn't get to make any of your money until you hit the $400. That's intense. That sucks. That's like robbery for sure.
It's out there for, I would say, maybe a month or so. And then I was like, it's not really worth it, you know?
Yeah.
As much as clubs out there, there's some really historic places, there's some really cool spots, but it's like, for me, it was also about an hour and a half drive into San Francisco to dance. And those were the closest clubs to me. They really weren't worth it, at that point. So
yeah, that
it's
makes sense.
better just to venture out of state, work a little bit. Plus, it's nice you pay for your trips while you travel.
Yeah, I always like it's kind of, you get to explore, and yeah, you get to go work and also like see a new place, which is kind of nice. So what I wanted to do before COVID started, I wanted to go to like a strip club in every state and just kind of see how every state's run. I've still goals. We'll see. Okay, it's interesting that you talked about the employee laws because I was listening to AM Davis talk about it on her podcast. Yes, a stripper. I feel like I'm gonna talk about it like every recording I do. But I know she worked really hard on getting stripper advocacy, that law passed. And her biggest complaint is that the law is there and it's for us, but that the club managers and owners are still breaking the laws and breaking the rules and even making it worse. Do you agree with that? Do you think that unionization is a good idea? Do you think that there is a way to be like an employer? And I should actually state for people who don't know, strippers are independent contractors, so it's a little different than being like an employee of a business. So do you think that there is a way we could be employees, or do you like the independent contractor aspect?
Personally, with my personal experience, I really do prefer to be independent. But at the same time, I completely understand where everyone was coming from wanting the rights of employees, because we are in a lot of ways treated as employees, the rules we have to follow, the schedules, everything like that. But it's hard because, they took what was intended to empower us and used it to, steal money from us, essentially. I don't know how it is in other parts of California. I heard it's much better. I know I'm in probably the worst spot for dancing in California, unfortunately. And all of the clubs in the city closest to me as well are Deja Vu owned. And Deja Vu is the one corporation that has been imposing those insane fees and everything like that. So I know that not every strip club out there is horrible, but it's hard, to take away a lot of our agency and, our money under the guise of legality and things like that. But at the same time, we're not totally protected being independent. So, I can say I prefer to be independent, but I have been pretty privileged to not have many experiences in clubs being independent where I felt the treatment was overly unfair.
You talked about Deja Vu. Do you have experience working at like a mom and pop place as well? Or have you worked for a bigger chain?
Well, my home club here in Denver is more of like a mom and pop sort of place. So I spent most of my stripping career here. So that's more what I was used to. And I was kind of spoiled. I feel that that's a club that was very well managed. I felt I was treated very fair there most of the time. Our fees were very reasonable and low. So I come from a place where, I enjoyed the privileges of being independent. And then I had, the worst of being an employee. So my perspective is, a little different. So I'm to hear, what it's like for other girls being employees in other places and what everyone as a whole seems to feel is the best.
That's interesting. Yes. And so moving into that, saying that you worked primarily in the Denver club, if you feel comfortable talking about, I don't know if you want to state, I don't know if we want to say do we want to say the name of the club? It's up to you if you want to name it, but I heard you were telling me about something that happened recently, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so my home club here is in Denver. And I'm sure a lot of people in the community have been hearing about it. And just last weekend, there was a violent event that happened in the club. It led to the death of one of the staff members and a few others that are in the hospital right now. And I actually wasn't working that night, so I wasn't there, but my close friend was there as well. And a lot of girls I know were there, so it was kind of a surreal thing to hear about too. And a little bit disheartening to see the reactions from kind of the general public upon hearing, news of a tragedy, what was a tragedy and something awful that happened. And a lot of people were primarily focused on, why is the strip club open right now? Why was anyone there? I understand, for safety reasons and everything, a lot of people don't think anyone should be out in nightlife right now, but at the same time, we need to work, people have jobs, everything like that. So it was, I just found it really sad to see that there was such a huge response that was focused on more so shaming for strippers and their jobs and for the strip club even being open, let alone, something horrible happening. There was less, I feel like, community outreach in that sense of like, is everybody okay?
Yeah.
It was more like shaming than it was of embracing. Whereas, most big tragedies, anything like that happens anywhere else, you see a huge community outreach. So it was nice to see that, everyone within the community was being really, welcoming and sweet to everyone who was traumatized dealing with that and going through something like that, but it was support only from the community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm actually surprised. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised, but I'm saddened that it wasn't talked about even more. Because I mean, if any violence happens in like a movie theater or like school, obviously we hear about it all the time. But when it happens in clubs or the nightlife, it's just kind of pushed away as like, oh, a drunken person or like whatever. Yeah, or like horror shaming. Instead of talking about like why did this happen, and like giving time to, oh my gosh, to like honor the poor person that soul. That's like so sad. That's so scary. If I kind of want to talk about like what happened a little bit, just as like a warning sign, like do you know if like, was it like a drunk guy, did he start fighting, like did it escalate really quickly, did someone just come in and act crazy, like what, do you know what exactly happened?
Right. So this is what I have heard. I've been living out of state, so I haven't been working in the club since about probably the beginning of May here, I want to say. So I hadn't, he wasn't someone I had met or known, but my friend who's been working there recently as well was telling me that the killer, who did come in, was the person who he had been there regularly, and he'd shown erratic behavior. He'd actually been asked not to come back to the club. And so a lot of girls were kind of under the impression that he might have been mentally ill or some kind of a break, something like that. And he came in on Friday night and immediately came in wielding a knife. And with the intent, someone was telling me they believed that he was after one of the girls. He actually made it through the club and to the back stairs up to the locker room before
Oh my
security.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which was really scary, of course,
So
because
scary.
like, my heart dropped hearing that as well, because, that's just the worst case scenario. That's just a nightmare, and we to have a safe place to work. And when awful things do happen, and they happen anywhere, and you never know, like when they do, you want support from your community, and you don't want to be shamed for being at your job and working. You deserve a safe space to work. You shouldn't have to fear backlash.
Right, exactly. And it's kind of what I wanted this podcast to be about. I want to highlight amazing people like yourself in the industry and highlight some of the amazing, great things that we learn, or just that it's a part of us because of what we do. But then I also don't want to shy away from talking about the serious topics as well, and not for it to be start to have a conversation of like, well, this is why we don't have strip clubs, or this is why, this is why it's evil, or whatever. It's like, no, like you said, there could be dangerous things happen anywhere, movie theaters, schools, like I said. And instead, like, I think the conversation needs to be about like, how do we train like bouncers better? How did this person even get through the door? Like, yeah, there should have been like a facial recognition of like, okay, no, this person can't come in. And then the fact that he could so easily go to like our dressing room, that's mind blowing.
And it's always hard because security concerns aren't ever raised anywhere until something does happen. But I always try to think of it as sort of a positive outcome when bad things do happen. It does give that really awful wake-up call, for I'm sure there will be increased security like when anything happens, but it's just hard to see a lot of community backlash coming for something that obviously wasn't any employee or dancer's fault. Crazy people happen anywhere.
Right.
So it's just backlash rather than support when something like that happens in the community.
So do you engage with the backlash at all? Are you active on social media by voicing your opinion, or are you more of the type that just kind of sits back and like watches everyone react?
I personally prefer not to engage in more negative things. In my opinion, it tends to just be more toxic to me personally. Like I'll get really invested, I'll get so mad, and in the end, there's a lot of people whose opinions you're just not going to change. Mm-hmm. So more of like it protects my well-being, not engaging with people that I know just are never going to have an open mind or support about us at all. But of course, if I see things more directly, it's something that I do have a hard time just ignoring.
If you so if I gave you the floor to speak, and if we pretended like no one's gonna see this but just you and I, and no one can comment on the release, what is something that you would say to kind of the judgmental people out there, or people who are just kind of confused about our work?
Honestly, I always advise people to just Google it, do some research. Like, our job is not to sit and educate them, about our jobs. It's not our job to sit one-on-one with a person who's very ignorant or judgmental and tell them why we deserve rights and why we deserve, happiness and safety in our jobs. Mm-hmm. People that are misguided to the point where they equate, exploitation, forced work, things like that with, the other side of the industry, which is us choosing our jobs and being very happy and fulfilled. It's something that some people can be educated on and some people just never will be. In my opinion, I always just tell people that they need to do their research. It comes off very uneducated and ignorant, really. It's a very old to think, any woman showing her body or using her body is, very evil and corrupted. And it's just like a mindset I don't really engage in. There's people that and there's people that won't allow themselves to be.
You're right. That's a beautiful answer. I love that. What kind of superpower do you think this industry has given you?
That's a good question. I honestly feel that I've gained a lot from this industry. I've changed so much even in just the past year. I worked a lot last year for sure. I was playing state and everything. So, I look back often actually, and I think, I am a completely different person and I'm so much happier. The confidence that I have is something that I was very shy, even in high school, things like that. I was not one to really stand up for myself. I was not one to take big chances, to do things outside of my comfort zone even. And now it's like, I kind of feel like I can do anything I put my mind to, and on my own too, like I'm in a position where I feel if I need something, I know that I'm relying on myself. And that's a very powerful feeling.
Yeah, that definitely is like stepping into our power is so powerful. And I want to ask, what is one of your favorite experiences you've had at work? Is there a memory that kind of sticks out to you by any chance?
It's a really good question. I've honestly had a lot of really amazing nights at work. Like I'm sure, a lot of girls have, and that's money wise or otherwise, I would say recently, I was working in Phoenix and, I met this guy at the club and he was very, very sweet. He was the kind of guy who he frequents strip clubs often, whatever. And he asked me to come over and give a dance to his friend, and he gave me $100, for like a $10 floor dance, which already it's like, I'm going to hang out with him. Right. And with them dancing, whatever, we're getting drinks and stuff. And he's paying me like all night, which obviously is amazing and stuff. And when he's getting ready to leave, he tells me, I had so much fun with you tonight, and you really helped me not miss my fiance who's at home, who's actually a dancer. And that's because it was like, we didn't even do really any dances or anything. It was just kind of, but it kind of reminded me that there are guys there are guys that come in and they understand our industry. They understand where we're coming from. They understand our jobs. They understand, that we're here to make money and we're here to have fun too. So it was just a sweet experience. I cherish all of my good customers because, you always get the bad, of course, but I think it's important to keep in mind, when you do get a sweet customer or when you do get a guy that just wants to give you money for nothing, like those are special. They kind of keep your faith up,
Right. And I love that he kept it like in the family too. He's like, my fiance's a dancer. That's the coolest thing. I love that. Well, what makes a bad customer though, for people who don't know this?
I always say, I think the worst quality a customer can have is being disrespectful. Because, I come in the club and they really don't know how it works, like I've had guys come in and like they didn't know they had to pay me for a dance. And then when they find out, they're sorry, they pay me, whatever. But that's not disrespectful necessarily, as it's just, being brand new. Whereas a disrespectful customer is someone who knows how the club works and they choose not to have respect for you and your job and your work. So what makes a bad customer is that disrespect and those lack of boundaries, disrespectful, like he doesn't want to pay you money he owes you. He refuses to understand boundaries, physically or otherwise. Or he, customers will even down talk to you sometimes, like I've had customers be like, well, you're not the hottest girl here, but you're okay. Stuff like that it's.
Which is bullshit. You're the hottest person in the whole entire world.
Based in disrespect. And they're never going to have experience in the club because, we want to be respected for our jobs. Otherwise, like whether you have our titties in your face or not, we're a person and we are working and we are professionals, we'll provide a great experience if you're a great customer. It's very.
Mm-hmm. What is the kind of great experience that you provide?
So that's a good question. I think everyone has, their specialties in the club and things like that. And personally, I kind of like to tailor that experience to a customer. And it depends on the night too. On a weeknight, say a customer will come in, maybe he just wants to talk, and I'm always up for that. Like I always say, we're kind of like therapists, and we are for sure. But it's something like when I have a great customer, I always want to strive to give them, that genuine experience. Like I want to have fun as much as they want to have fun with me. And I always think, those are the times I'm really grateful for my job, whether I'm talking, doing dances, whatever. Those are the times when I think, I'm very lucky that I get to get paid for this, because there's a misconception that we always hate our jobs and we're very, put off by every customer and things like that. And it's really not the case. I mean, I have a lot of fun with my great customers. I enjoy my time with them. I love to dance for them, So I think, when you go in the club with a great mindset, what we really provide is something genuine. We provide that genuine connection, that genuine experience for them. And I don't think you can put a price tag on that, but it would be pretty high if you could, right?
Yes, it'd be at least 1,000, if not more. So actually, that's a good segue into, I want to kind of touch base on you as a person before we close up our time together. So you said you provide a genuine experience. What is your routine like? Like, how do you step into this like genuine person? Is there like kind of a mask you put on? Are you a witch? Like, tell me your juicy details or secrets without sharing too much of the magic.
It's not even necessarily like an alter ego as it is just a facet of my personality. Like I live with my fiance, and when we were in quarantine, he would always joke like, you get so bored because you like to perform for people and there's no one to perform for. And that's really true, and it's something that I never really knew about myself until being in the industry. But for me, putting on my work persona is more about putting on a version of myself that lives for that, like exhibitionism in a sense, that wants to be watched, that wants to be seen. My kind of pre-work ritual is more about becoming the person that I am at work rather than completely training myself. It's more like just kind of accenting those parts of myself that maybe are in my everyday life. Like I'm not as demanding in my everyday life. I'm not as, maybe confident or cocky in my everyday life. It's like an elevated version of myself that I put on for work. It's a costume, but it's more authentic than that.
Right. What do you think it is that craves the need to perform for people? Like, what do you think? Do you have an opinion of what that drive comes from?
I don't know, really, because it's not something I ever really had in myself. Like I said, I was very shy. I was pretty reserved. I think it came more from, like my self-worth changed a lot. Becoming a stripper, it kind of taught me, I feel like I'm different, like not to be like, oh, we're different from other girls, but being a sex worker does take something different. It takes it takes a certain kind of like self-belief that not everyone has. So I feel like it kind of pushes you to be that person who can, achieve the things that you want to achieve, even if it's not really you all the time, in a sense.
I have this theory that sex workers come from a very long lineage of healers, and that sometimes people, like, I feel like what brings us into the industry is like we're in need of money, or the typical or stereotype of how someone starts into it. But I kind of feel like that's like the universe kind of just like pushing you into your life path sometimes, like, because like you said, you like all of a sudden wake up one day and you're like, I love this, I love being a performer. I didn't even realize I had these like skills in me. I was so shy. um do you feel that some of your skills and stuff, like, do you feel the same way? Like, do you feel like there's a weird part of you that somehow like knew this about yourself, like that the skills came so quickly that it's just like, I must have done this in some other some other lifetime? Like, what do you think of that?
I do, really. It's kind of hard to explain to people that aren't in the industry or who don't already understand that, my job to me feels like my career. And, I do other things outside of the industry as well, but that's why, I couldn't see myself giving it up unless it was really ultimately my own choice, because I do feel very fulfilled in that. I do feel that what we do is offer a lot of healing to people. I've even had clients, that have told me, like, I'm going through a divorce, or I'm a widower, or I've just gone through this, and, you made me feel better. Thank you so much. And that's also an aspect of my job that it leaves me feeling very fulfilled, knowing that, on the surface, what we offer seems fleeting and superficial, but for a lot of people, it's meaningful, and it is very healing. That touch and that connection, it can mean a lot. It can do a lot.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How is your practice going to change or more, like with this COVID? Have you given that thought of what you're going to offer or what you see the future as?
I have been thinking a lot about it lately. I've never been one for really online work. It hasn't really ever clicked for me. So kind of my goal is to get a little bit more versatile, because right now all I do is dance, and, I love it. But we're in a world where it can be very tenuous. I live in California, so nothing's open out there, so it can feel very scary. So I'd like to give myself the tools to be a little more versatile, to offer things at a distance even, So I'm trying to kind of put together more online based content that reflects what I do in the club, but from a distance, so like almost trying to put together more of a virtual stripper experience.
Beautiful. Cool. Well, where could people find you stepping into this new path of yours, this expansion?
So right now I am putting it together on my OnlyFans. So my username on OnlyFans is Angelica with an H on the end. It's also, you'll have my Instagram up or whatever. So you
Yeah,
can
we'll
also
tag all the links in. Yeah. And
always find
maybe
me.
where would someone throw you a couple of dollars if they wanted to during this talk?
You can always, I think the best place would always be to like hit me up on my OnlyFans
Okay.
too.
Okay. Perfect.
Instagram too. I usually go through my messages. So
Okay.
if anyone dollars, they're welcome.
Yes, let's show where this goes. And then lastly, I want to ask, what are you doing to stay grounded during this time? And also with a variety of people watching, shout out to, I feel like I asked questions for the Mughal world out there, but then like also shout out to our stripper and sex worker family. Well, sex worker, all stripper, you're stripper, so I'm saying stripper. Shout out to everyone that's listening. What would you say to give them encouragement during this time? So like, what are you doing to stay grounded, and what's a little secret message that you're just like giving our family right now who's watching?
It's been hard for me, someone who primarily enjoys working in person in the clubs. And to stay grounded, it's just been helping me think of the community that we have around us, leaning on each other. I've been wanting to do even online pole classes with some of the girls in the community, things like that. Focusing on, bettering yourself and leveling yourself up so that when the clubs do open up, or, when wherever you're working, you can go back to work in person, you feel like you took the time to be a better version of yourself instead of spending the time stressing. Mm-hmm. So invest, whether that's financially, physically, emotionally, skill-wise, just putting that love back into yourself.
I love that. That's beautiful. I also want to say that you have like 777 tattooed, right, on your finger. So I feel like if you guys are ever lonely, just be like 777 Angelica. And you just will have your angel right there on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Well,
He's there for girls in the community too. If anyone ever feels like they need someone to reach out to, I'm always there for the sisters around us. I always want to be a part of that community. And if you guys ever need anyone to reach out to.
I love that. Yeah. That's so beautiful. Yay. Okay. Well, on that note, I will let you go. Thank you so much. Wait. Actually, I forgot to do this in the beginning, so I want to do it now. I'm going to sage the area. Is that okay? Let's see. I want to sage the area. I want to say thank you to everyone who watched and listened and is a part of our community. And then also I want to sage the negativity away and just have a super safe space for us just to share, what's happening in our life. So thank you so much again for joining us, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, it's exciting. Okay. I'm excited. Thanks you.
Wait, can you say that one more time? I think you cut off a little bit.
Excited to see where your project goes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, you guys, we'll talk to you later. See you next week.